and I'm going to go live on Facebook, which takes me a minute as I type. So just welcoming everybody who's joining us tonight. We're doing our UCC community conversation with church volunteers, and we've got a good group of church volunteers with us. We're just going to prepare to go live on Facebook, so just hang with us for about a minute or two before we start our discussion. This is I think the 12th in our series of community conversations. We have one more for October, on October 28th, on small business. And we'll be announcing the details of that one shortly. So I'm just typing in live on Facebook. We hope that everybody is staying safe and healthy and following the public health parameters wherever you are as they change and evolve. And we'll have a bit of a discussion about that tonight. Okay, so we are broadcasting live on Facebook. We are welcoming some guests in person with us, and we have our panel. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Ihor Michalchyshyn. If you haven't already recognized me, my role here at the UCC office is to be the executive director and CEO, and I'm fortunate to be the host of our community conversations, which we've been doing since May and June. I forget how long, but it's been a great conversation we've had across Canada with different sectors, and we're learning a lot from each other and making some new connections that I think will serve us all well in the future. Tonight, our topic is church volunteers, which, as you all know, are the core groups who keep our churches, places of worship going. And so we've got a panel here from across Canada that will tell you a little bit about the situation that's taken place and what they're doing to adapt. But first, I'm just going to go around and let them introduce themselves. I'm just going to introduce them by name and then ask them to tell you about themselves. So first, we have Barb Hlus from the Ukrainian Catholic Women's League of Canada, the president. Hi, Barb. Can you tell us about yourself a little bit?
Thank you, Ihor, for coordinating these community conversations during the pandemic. Slava Isusu Christu.
Slava Navika.
I am Barb Hlus, and I'm the current Ukrainian Catholic Women's League of Canada national president. I represent about 3,500 Ukrainian Catholic women across Canada, whose mission is to work in service for God and the people. We do this through our aims of Ukrainian Catholic faith, culture, social development, and charitable works. And we bring leadership to the UCWLC on the national and international level, which keeps us connected and unified under the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church in Ukraine.
Excellent. Thank you, Barb. Next on my screen, I'm going to go to Greg Blisnyuk. Greg, could you tell us a little about yourself?
Absolutely. Slava Isusu Christu. Thanks, Ihor, and welcome everyone to tonight's event. Again, my name is Greg Blisnyuk. I'm representing St. Volodymyr Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral as its president and chair of the church council. The cathedral was founded in 1926. We're based in Toronto on Bathurst Street, and we're uniquely positioned to serve the needs of our Ukrainian Orthodox members and the broader community in Toronto by offering a full range of liturgical and religious services in two locations, downtown Toronto at 400 Bathurst, as I mentioned, and in Oakville at the All Saints of Ukraine Chapel. We also proudly offer support for all of life's events through the St. Volodymyr Cultural Center and Banquet Hall and the St. Volodymyr Ukrainian Cemetery. The cathedral is a proud member church of the UOCC, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Canada, and we're particularly proud of the conciliar governance structure or subordinopravnost that is a defining characteristic of all UOCC churches, where the parishioners and the clergy jointly manage the affairs of the church. Great to be here.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks.
And next is Yaros Balan, who is on the UCC National Board from the Ukrainian Self-Reliance League. Yaros, do you want to tell us about the organization and yourself a little bit?
Sure. The Ukrainian Self-Reliance League is an umbrella, or actually organization that encompasses a women's section, a men's section, which is now merged into one section, and a youth section, Союз Української молоді Канади. We've been around since the 1920s, early 30s. Our mission is to support the development of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Canada at the parish level, at the eparchal level and at the consistory level. So we do this in various ways, whether it's through fundraising, obviously providing moral support, providing volunteer labor for committees and things like that to help maintain our churches.
Great, thank you, Yaris. And next on my screen here is Liza Zienchuk from CYMK, and I'll let Liza explain what CYMK stands for.
Hi, my name is Liza Zienchuk, and as Ihor mentioned, I'm representing CYMK, which is Союз Української молоді в Канаді. In English, we use UOY, which is Ukrainian Orthodox Youth. As Yaris mentioned, we are under the umbrella of the USRL, and we are the official Ukrainian Orthodox Youth of Canada. Myself, I am a longtime CYMK member. Currently, I've held many different roles throughout the organization, and now I am the CYMK rep to the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, and hopefully we can provide some insight tonight.
Great, and Liza is also the chair of our Youth Interorganizational Committee, which did a fabulous trivia night a couple of weeks ago, bringing together all of our various youth organizations to do some great events. So, дякую, Liza. And last but not least is Slavka Sametz-Chewchuk. And Slavka, you're the president of the Ukrainian Women's Association of Canada. And can you tell us about that organization, about yourself?
I'm not the president. The president is Darcy Muskaluk
Right. Oh, sorry, my error.
But as we all wear many hats, I am proud to be the representative on the Congress Council. I also happen to be on the executive of our specific vigil at the Cathedral Sophia Rusalka. Sorry, that's St. D's. We're at Kinahanya Oyha. Boy. Anyway, I'm also on the Uprava of the Cathedral, and I guess this is an example how volunteers are stretched thin. But anyway, Liza, we hope to see you at UWAC in the future. We need our young people to transition into our organizations, and traditionally, as everyone knows, it's the women who washed the floors, made the vareniki, and helped get rid of the mortgages of the churches. And we're just trying to keep that going.
Okay, thank you, Slavka. My apologies for the title error. So we're going to get started now that our guests have introduced themselves. We always start our conversations by allowing people to tell us about the impact of COVID, which really, I think, started on Friday, March 13th and onward, and has gone through the spring, through the summer, now into the fall. So again, we're going to go in the order that we spoke of, and we're going to give each guest about 5-6 minutes to tell us about the impact of their organization, to their church, and broader. So Barb, can you tell us what's been the impact for your organization, for you personally, and for the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church in Canada?
Certainly. Well, at the beginning of the COVID, I was resting on a beach in Mazatlan, but still very well connected to the community because of the role that I do have. So it was sort of very surreal at that point until we got home. But the initial impact of COVID on all of us was the uncertainty of what was happening. How bad really was it? There were many outbreaks among choir and church groups as a result of the large close gatherings, and then singing went out the window. That made our churches incubators for the virus. Then we began to see the airports closed, church doors closed. We were all told to go into isolation, schools closed, and you know the rest of the story. With the closing of the churches, that meant for our league that branches and eparchial executives could not meet. So our structure is national. There is a board, and then eparchial. Each eparchy has one eparchial executive attached, and then the branches. So that's local, provincial, and nationally. So none of us could meet physically, which meant that they couldn't carry out their programs, their fundraising activities, and could not come together physically in prayer and spiritual communion of the liturgy. For many, that came at a great spiritual cost. Our shared sense of responsibility to community was heightened, but we couldn't do anything about it. We needed to be there, but we couldn't do it. Our league members could not do the pastoral work in the hospitals, in our care facilities, or even get together to have social coffee, which we are social people. That's what we do. We know what impact this has on the social well-being of our most vulnerable, our youth and our society. It also had an impact on our volunteers. But the greatest impact of COVID-19, in my humble opinion, on our organization was that it made us realize our purpose or mission as UCWLC members and volunteers in the community. Our job remained the same. So our work in the church may have stopped, but our service for the church was calling even louder. COVID-19 also brought our prayer community closer than ever. We were all in this together. COVID-19 brought about a heightened awareness of the significant role that our volunteers and church organizations play in the socio-political life of society. We gained a greater understanding of religious freedoms, or not, and social justice. But also COVID-19 led our governments to assist us in our roles. They provided funding to lessen the burden on so many that were without. Big thing was to recognize the real economic and social impact of our organizations and church groups and volunteers, not just in our hospitals, or not just in our churches, but in our hospitals, our care facilities, and with those in need, known as our most vulnerable, right? And thank you. It created an action that UCC wrote the letter to the PM supporting our seniors and our caregivers, which was awesome. Thank you for that. That was part of my job, but and yeah, so we like to look at it as, yes, it was a great impact, but we looked at it as a positive side for our own internal looking inside who we are as an organization and who we are as a church. But a lot of positives came out of it.
Thank
No
you for
pun
sharing that.
intended.
Very, very eloquent. Okay, and now we're going to go over to Greg at the cathedral. So, Greg, can you tell us a little bit about what the impact was in the cathedral and your other sites through the spring and summer?
Sure. Let's see, much of what Barb described would have applied to the cathedral and our facilities. Look, it was quite a shock, right? I mean, the whole point of celebrating liturgy is to be together and witness the beauty of our choral tradition, pray together, take communion together, all of those things. I mean, that now is completely out the window, and it's caused us to rethink the way we do everything. So this has been, anyway, a tremendous shock, tremendous impact. And as I mentioned, we've had to rethink the way we do everything. Now we have rethought, and we're on a good path now. But you know, the doors to the cathedral were closed for the first time in probably ever, for that matter. We take pride in the fact that our doors are always open, especially on Sundays. The banquet hall was shut down as well. The chapel was no longer functioning. The only thing that continued to function to some degree was the cemetery. Anyhow, which, you know, good and bad, I guess, in some respects, and recognizing that that is a public cemetery, and the burials that are conducted there would include both members of our parish, but the broader Christian community in the GTA. Anyhow, so again, similar to what Barb was saying, tremendous impact on our spiritual life.
Thanks for sharing. We're going to go to Liza next, and then to Yaris. Liza, what's been the impact on your organization and on yourself and your peers?
So CYMK is a little bit of an interesting organization in the fact that our locals really do thrive on being able to get together and organize things together and be together. However, nationally, we've always been meeting online and we've always been organizing online. Our executive has been scattered throughout Canada for, I want to say, the past 6 years, maybe more. So national level, we're very used to doing everything online and organizing things online and coordinating with people that are very far away or that we can't actually physically meet up. But it kind of seems difficult to have a national executive when the locals kind of stop. And because two of our main pillars are culture and fellowship, we tend to combine those two pillars together and create cultural-based events where we get together and we do caroling, or we'll get together and we'll do CYMK. And we haven't been able to do any of that. So our locals have pretty much come to a standstill because we're not able to meet, we're not able to have in-person retreats, which really helps develop our spirituality. And national kind of exists to serve the locals. So if the locals aren't getting together, then what is national really doing? So that has been the biggest challenge and the biggest impact for us with CYMK. The one thing that national has also had an impact on is we were trying to plan a trip to Ukraine, and with all the travel being canceled, that has really gone up in the air. And we were really looking forward to having that trip being another bonding experience and something to kind of open up the country, this mythical Ukraine that maybe a lot of people in our churches haven't been able to experience. So it has been really difficult from that perspective as well, trying to think of ways that we can still connect everybody throughout the different locals, not only within each other in their own local, but also between Winnipeg and Toronto and Edmonton and everyone that's throughout the country. So it has definitely been a challenge, and that has been the biggest impact, I would say, for CYMK.
Great, thank you. And over to Yars, who's in Edmonton. Yars, can you tell us what's been the impact on your organization and the work that we're planning to do over the spring and summer?
Well, let me begin with as like many of us. I mean, I wear many hats as a volunteer and also professionally because I'm employed at the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies at the University of Alberta. And how's this for impact of COVID? We happen to schedule both our annual Bohdan Boturkin Memorial Lecture, which is devoted to a subject on religion, and a one-day symposium on the Ukrainian Orthodox Church on March 12th and March 13th. And this is just as everything was breaking with COVID. The night before, the university announced that they were banning gatherings of more than 500 people or something, 100, a large number of people, whatever. But to me, it was very clear that holding a symposium and having members of the community, especially members of our churches, many of whom are older, who are precisely in the vulnerable age group, to bring them together for something like that would be a mistake. And I had to make a decision at 7 o'clock in the morning of the symposium. We had our Boturkin lecture at St. John's Cathedral in Edmonton. We had about 50, 60 people. I used the opportunity to make a list of everybody who was there. I was already thinking about contact tracing because if we have to track anybody down. Fortunately, there was no exposure, but the very next day we decided to cancel the sessions. We had already arranged to videotape it and live stream it. So what we ended up doing is just taping all of the speakers. One of them was Father Yaroslav Bachora from Toronto. We had theologians from Europe, from Ukraine, from the States, the United States, who all participated. We taped everything, we put it online, so we went ahead and we scrambled to get people on flights because countries were closing their borders. And we barely got the person in Ukraine back into Ukraine. So that's how the COVID thing started. Obviously, we all had to shift gears when the church services went to live streaming. And I think that took some getting used to. Easter was very strange, putting your basket in front of your television screen and waiting to have it blessed. But I'd have to say that we're adapting. Ukrainian SUS is a national umbrella group, and so one of the values of it is that we have people on our board that come from all the different parts of the country, and so you get a sense of how things are unfolding around the country. It's forced us to become more computer literate, I guess, using Zoom and Google Meet and communicating more with the computers than we already were. We have an e-blast that we've been using. we've been getting good response. You know, people actually are monitoring and following things, which is encouraging. And that we use it to spread information, among other things, because streaming of church services is continuing. Sometimes it's hard to find which church is doing it that weekend or whatever, that Sunday. But so I guess we've had to shift gears and learn a few new tricks for those of us, especially of the older generation. The most important thing, I guess, is just personally is that it's clear that this is not going away that quickly. I happen to be married to, my wife is an infectious disease specialist, so this is in her bailiwick, and she deals with this on a daily basis in her capacity as the infection control person at her hospital. And it's wearing us down. It wears you down. You know, it's hard to keep your spirits up. And I think that's one of the challenges that we all face. It's going to be a long winter. The virus will, you know, it's a challenging time. So, but what do? You put your head down and keep going.
Thanks, Ihor. So of course, I wanted to thank you for your work as director of KIUS, and I know you're continuing on there, which is excellent. So we thank you on behalf of the community, and we'll know that we have a good liaison there. And yes, I remember that you were pioneers of the live streaming conferences.
Yeah.
As it broke.
We just had one with Senator Raynell and Drake that was
yeah.
very successful over lunch and on the Canada's Magnitsky laws. And but yeah, you have to work in a different way, and that's what we're doing.
Excellent, thanks for sharing. And over to Slavka, can you tell us about the impact on yourself, on your church, and your community?
UWAC, Ukrainian Women's Association of Canada, is also under the USRL umbrella. As everyone knows, volunteers are retired people. It's really hard in society the way it is to get younger people out to volunteer. Everybody's got double incomes and issues and whatever. And COVID virtually wiped that out. Our women, while the demographics of our group, I mean, we just had 2 90th birthdays, a 95th birthday coming up, and these are the women that ran the kitchens. And the structure of society has changed, because in the previous time, going to the church to make vareniki was Facebook. That was the Gossip Baba, the BBC. That was social. And most of our organizations are social. And that's what the women would come for, as well as the obligation and the necessity to volunteer for the church. So it was a double thing. And I think that's a success of CYMK, when someone says, oh, but the young people are joining the organizations because CYMK is so strong. However, that's a specific university demographic. I think it's also social, because I know when I was at McMaster that, hey, all the Yukis got together at the Yuki table and we ran the Ukrainian club. So I just would like to see these young people, as I mentioned to Liza, transition into these organizations, but we have to make them viable. We have to make them relevant. And that is something, being on national UWAC, we are addressing those things, the challenge of the future. And this COVID has really forced us to look at these challenges to actually change the organization. And I don't want it to fall apart. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of, coming out of COVID, we'll see how organizations survive. We'll see how they have morphed. On the one hand, the ladies absolutely love the liturgy streaming online. They're not going anywhere, and that is extremely important to them. Even when COVID ends, they want to still have it online. And I'm glad that we're on YouTube, not on Facebook, because I don't think my mother, who's 90, would ever go on Facebook, but she certainly clicks into YouTube and watches. But that is also a challenge, because we have a lot of seniors who don't have emails. Well, here's an example. My mother is the head of the phone committee. So while our president sends out emails, she has to phone her group, that then phone their group to relay this information. But it's wonderful because those conversations are probably their only touchstone because they haven't left the house since March. My mother has not left the house since March. She had her hairdresser come to her. Anyway, but not until about 2 weeks ago. So it's been really hard, I think, on our members. It's been challenging for us to engage them. It's been challenging for us to keep them safe. It's been challenging to change things, but I think in a sense, it's almost like COVID has has exploded everything, that it'll give us a chance, maybe like the phoenix, to rise out of the ashes. But I just wanted to mention something, because I asked our president, because we just had a national meeting by Zoom last night. And that's another thing. This is my third night in a row on Zoom. If only they weren't always, and you know the challenges, Ihor, trying to organize everybody to have a slot of time. And this is, on one hand, it's fabulous. I go on, the Atlantic has a lot of fabulous webinars and a lot of things going on. At least those are during the day. But while everybody has access, which is fabulous, it's also an inundation of so much. There's always something interesting going on, and it's our obligation to get that stuff out there, but sometimes we can have information overload.
I totally agree with you, which is why I think this conversation series came out of the it was we did a couple of very long webinars right at the beginning. We had one with lawyers in April, and it was 2 hours. It was very useful. It was very detailed, and it was
they were billing by the hour.
They were all on there for free. So we worked with the Bar Association, and that was when people were very scared about contracts and festivals and events, and what would the consequences be? Did you have insurance for things or not? It was a very long 2 hour, very formal thing. And I think this kind of thing is more conversational, more accessible to people. We're using social media to reach out. And as all of you said, we've been spurned on by COVID as well, right? We weren't exactly doing these kind of things beforehand, both technologically and because of we were all busy doing our own thing. But I think now we're having, it's a bit of a jolt. It's a bit of a reminder that we're all, whether you're a dance group, a parish council, a Ukrainian school, everybody is having to figure out new ways of doing things. I think Greg said that. And mostly, I think, mostly successfully, but with bumps along the way. So now we're going to turn to those things. I want to hear your examples. I want to hear what's gone really well. You've mentioned, again, streaming of liturgies. I know for my Easter, I was switching between my home parish in Winnipeg and then another parish here, just to see, what was going on in different churches, which is a totally new experience. So we're going to start with Barb again. Our second question in the round is sort of what's been done, how are you adapting, perhaps some examples of what to do, what not to do. And Barb, over to you, and we'll just get you to unmute yourself there.
Sorry, my furnace went on. I wasn't sure if everybody was going to hear that. Well, lots of things. Of course, live streaming was the first thing that went, which was a godsend. We had the resources to do that. We engaged old school communication. We initiated those phone trees. So that phoning committee was called to order. And that's what kept our women in that social connection, that touch. Kept them with their circle of friends. We wanted to make sure that they had some means of communication, whether that was an email or a phone call. So we branched out, everybody took their calls, went and did that. We initiated a check-in for Christ. We made a call, we did a Zoom, we made a FaceTime, we did a Skype, whichever it was, to make sure that any members that were alone, widowed, just to make sure that we had that check-in. Some did doorstep visits if they could. We did engage our younger members in assisting with the training of the various technologies. We didn't go a Facebook route, not yet, but we were kind of on that route. Like Liza, the national executive was already doing most of their stuff on Zoom and or teleconferencing or such. So it was just a matter of moving them forward into the next step. We just did it a lot faster, and got that in so that they could watch the live streams, particularly of the liturgies. Our eparchial bishops, via their clergy, kept us up to date on the health authority information. So we shared that with our league, members of the league, because they are, like Slavka had mentioned, they are they rule the world because they get things going. We are women in action. And so we spread that information out as best as we could. Eparchial bishops and parishes quickly moved to the online streaming of liturgies and many other services that I did not even know existed. And I'm a pretty good churchgoer and observer of the Holy Feast. But some of our parishes could do that. Some didn't have the resources to do that. So that was kind of a little bit like it was hard to accept that. And most of those parishes that couldn't do it, do live streaming, are also parishes where their communities did not have access to email or Facebook or any of the other YouTube. They had no idea. So they were lacking in that regard. The parish volunteers that could come forward, we did have an awful lot of our young parishioners coming up to the plate, stepping up to the plate, because most seniors were vulnerable, right? So we just made sure that they were all trained in the fancy equipment that came in with fogging and what have you. So there needed to be training. Those were the physical things that we tried. There's I don't know, like Yars had said, the rules and restrictions are changing like the seasons, but we are kind of getting into the new norm, what that's going to be. But the real challenge will be in the actions taken in revitalizing our ministries. And it's critical that our leaders and members of the church communities work cooperatively in finding these solutions, because I agree with Slavka. It's going to be survival of the fittest.
Thanks,
So,
Barb. Over to Greg again. Thinking about your church community, your parish. What have you been doing to adapt? What are some of those new parameters that you've undertaken, and what does the fall ahead look like for you?
We're very positive looking ahead into the fall and in the coming months. First of all, Barb seems to have stolen all my material. So anyway, but not surprisingly, it's not surprising that effectively we've done the same thing. So not to spend too much time on it, but we jumped right onto web streaming all of our services. We've also this event finally gave us the resolve to embark on the renovation project that we've been talking about for months and months, the renovation project of our communication infrastructure. So our online presence, our website, our integration with social media, all of that kind of stuff. We've been kind of tinkering for the last couple of years and not willing to commit. This finally pushed us over the edge, and soon we will have, again, a brand new infrastructure with integration with email, social media, all that kind of good stuff to make sure that we can properly communicate in a very complicated environment, properly communicate with our community. Where I wanted to spend some time though was specifically with volunteers, in that the proposition has changed considerably. Previously, it was relatively easy to solicit help from volunteers, and it would be along the lines of, "Hey, do you mind, joining us after liturgy and serving some vareniki? And by the way, you'll be able to eat for free and probably take a whole bunch home with you." That has changed to, "Oh, do you mind helping out? We'll give you a PPE kit. You'll have to screen people, some of whom will be belligerent." And anyway, so and prior to coming, please read this 40-page procedures and policy document, and you'll have to sign this disclaimer and on and on and on. So just a very, very different proposition, and it's in a serious one, in that we're trying to protect the health of our parishioners and minimize the risk and liability for our parish. I'm very proud and happy to say that the response has been positive. People that we didn't even know about have been coming out and volunteering to help, and we'll continue on our efforts to build that pool of talent. And I think this bodes well, and that's why I'm positive about when I think about the fall and in the coming months, and that people are stepping forward, and we are building a new nucleus of volunteers that'll lead us into the future.
Well said. That's a good focus. Liza, can you tell us about what has your organization been doing sort of now, and what are your plans for the fall?
Right. So as a national CYMK, we have mainly been focusing on engagement and just trying to create that broader sense of community that we usually do on a regular basis between our locals, between our different members across the country, but do it more effectively almost. It has been difficult because, as mentioned earlier, like us as young people, we've already have a huge information overload between school and part-time jobs, and everything is online, to now doubling that during COVID with all the different things that are going on. So it's been, I would say, more difficult from our perspective to gather engagement. And we all know that gathering volunteers is not an easy task. We've also struggled with that in the past, and COVID, effectively shutting down our local operations has made that even more difficult. So we've had a few initiatives, like on Vyshyvanka Day, we asked all the Sumkivci to take a picture of themselves in their Vyshyvanka, and we did a little bit of a collage. So that was one engagement thing that I think worked, especially geared towards the younger volunteer sector / younger engagement sector. We know that youth are looking for something that is non-committal, it's short, it's quick, it's to the point. They need something that's, we can engage and participate, but we're in and out and we're not spending hours and hours getting in on that. So Greg, a 40-page document, I think, is something that would definitely be a barrier for entry for youth that are, looking to volunteer. Another thing that we've done, though, is, as Ihor mentioned at the very beginning, I myself have worked with other youth organizations like Hlus, SUM, and MUNO to kind of do an online trivia night and try and really do something that's not just sit and watch, sit and listen, sit and read style, as I'm sure that everyone's used to, but something more engaging where people can actually participate, even though we aren't allowed to gather together in person. Another thing that CYMK is working on right now is, we were working on this before the COVID shutdown happened. We were trying to hire a youth coordinator to help us with administration and organization. And when COVID hit, it became a little bit of a question mark. We wanted this person to come and physically be near us and meet us in person and work with our clergy in person. However, looking at everyone being able to almost, study remotely, a lot of industries have moved remote. People are not working in offices anymore. A lot of people are successfully working from home. We're actually looking to continue forward with that position and have this person working remotely and getting to know our organization remotely. And this might be going on longer than we expected. So this could be another challenge that they actually help us with. And also, just our locals have been doing some good initiatives at the beginning. Our Winnipeg local got together and baked vareniki. They were doing it very socially distanced along all the protocols. And Toronto CYMK was also calling our seniors, making sure if they needed any help getting groceries delivered or pharmaceuticals. That way got a little complicated, but our locals did have that initial fire, and now I think we're mainly looking towards ways to engage our locals back into actually doing things and being engaged physically versus just over the internet.
Okay, excellent. Yars, what's the plan ahead for USRL, and how are you guys adapting to in your planning?
Well, I would say that one thing that's happened is that we're taking advantage of the opportunity to kind of look inward, to do some strategic planning, to think about restructuring, to try to, how do we position ourselves to emerge out of this stronger? And so we've had a series of sessions and processes that initially it was a question of flying in together and going through, a weekend of stuff, and now we're doing things obviously online. Communication obviously is another one that our e-blasts seem to be effective in terms of keeping people engaged, at least on that level. But I don't think we can belittle the challenges too. I mean, you were mentioning, about church services that are live stream and how neat it was to drop in on other services. That's true. I mean, we caught a service in Kamloops, and I've been in Kamloops, our church in Kamloops, since 1983 or 1982, or Calgary, or like for Velegdin, we started at the cathedral. We migrated to Winnipeg to get our baskets blessed because our guys they only booked 2 hours, so there was no blessing of the baskets. And then I jumped over to St. Vlad's in Toronto, which is my old, my parish church, and saw a rerun. So and I think that affects your perspective on things. So I mean, that's a positive thing. But I think that for many churches, I think as well, I mean, there's the economic hit. Not having the banquet hall rented out, the cash flow situation is not good. And that's going to be a challenge that will have to be overcome. And then even with the attendance on the online services has been declining too, that it's kind of lost its novelty for many people. Though I think that Slavka's right, that people are sort of used to it in the sense that now if you have shut-ins, there's no reason why they can't catch a service if they're technologically equipped. I mean, that's the real challenges that we're, the really older generation, though some of them do pick up computer skills, others don't, and don't have access to it. But I think that going forward, that's going to be a bigger part of the way we do things too.
Thank you. And Slavka, what have you've outlined some of the challenges? What about your year ahead? What are you thinking about to undertake that transformation?
Well, first of all, we were pleased to support the technological endeavors of live streaming with donating towards some of the equipment, and we had to do some reconfigurations with Wi-Fi and all kinds of things. Yep. So it was a joy to be part of that change, that we adapted and we could fund some of that. Our organization actually came up with this joint events, and actually on the fundraising thing, the chap from Regina mentioned different organizations getting together for a massive raffle, because we tend, as everyone knows, you have 3 Ukrainians, you have 7 organizations, but if we could get things more aligned together, that would be fabulous. I know our, instead of competing with each other, joining together, I know that we've had some successful events with joining other videos, but also I came up with the idea of having a Saturday online strategic planning session for the ladies across Canada, where we will have a representative from each video all across Canada, and we can brainstorm about where are we going, what is our mission, how can we change. And so we're looking forward to doing that in this, of course, I don't know if it'll be Zoom, because there's GoToMeeting, Zoom, and there's something else that we do. So, but we will be doing that because I don't think an executive can work in a vacuum. I don't think a national executive can work in a vacuum. And even if one vigil is doing something, we have to share it with another. So that is the benefit of this type of format.
Excellent. Well said. So we're at 10 to 9. I think we've had an excellent discussion, a lot of positive comments on Facebook. So thank you to everybody who's watching there. Thank you to our panelists for first for the work you've done, the work you are doing, and that you will continue to do, I'm sure, with your organizations, both locally and nationally, to keep our community, our church community, and our broader community going. So I wanted to thank you again, and we're going to wrap up now, but we invite people to check out our October 28th webinar, as well as our other webinars that are coming up, because we have also embraced this technology, and it actually allows us to do lots of interesting things that we might have not had the audience to do earlier on. But now that people are eager to check out events, we've got lots of things going on. So again, dobranic, thank you to Barb, Greg, Slavka, Liza, and Yars, and pass on our best to your executives and your organizations for all the work they've been doing. And we look forward to hearing more from you in the months and weeks ahead. Dobranic.
Thank
Right.
you.
Dobranic.
Thanks so much.
Dobranic.
Bye-bye.